What's up guys, this is Wenzes. Welcome back to my channel where we talk about creating an epic life on your terms. Today we're talking about how to emotionally detach and distance yourself from hurtful people in your life. And this is about people you want to stay in your life. So if you really want to just forget somebody or get over like a love that didn't work out, watch another video I have on this topic. I'll have it in the cards now. But today we're talking about people you specifically want to be in your life for the future. So let's say a parent, another family member, coworkers at a job that you really like, or friends that you actually like, but you have some kind of negative association with them. There's a negative dynamic and you want to change that without like really removing that person completely from your life. And I personally have had also in this topic a lot of experience. I think this topic in itself was very, very important for me to be able to step to the next abundance level in everything that I create in my life, because the relationships I had and everybody of us, they're always a reflection of what's going on in our mind and what we believe we deserve. And so every time I have a negative dynamic in my life, I really now get to sit down, analyze it, understand what I have been projecting in that instance, what is the thing that actually hurts me, and then I change it by detaching and mostly distancing myself from that person and still having an amazing relationship, but just recognizing that some people you have to love a little bit more from the far. And sometimes it's actually happening that you distance yourself from that person in one particular area so you feel safe and therefore can have a much better relationship, maybe even 10 times better than before in a completely different area of your life, because now you feel safe, because you know this area you're taken care of. You make sure that over this boundary will not be crossed, because you have found a way to change the dynamic, distance yourself, and really create now an epic relationship that helps you and supports you in being the person you want to be. If you like this video, guys, give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel and hit the bell for notification, and follow me on Instagram to stay up to date with the news around this channel. Theoretically speaking, we all know we can always have positive relationships. So we're not going to talk about like, is this even possible? Or should you just say, oh, there are always negative relationships in my life? I believe you can always have positive relationships in your life. I understand that sometimes you have to make compromises, as in, for example, you're at work and there's somebody you don't like, but you really love your job. Then I'm not saying like quit your job, specifically because you can change the dynamics between you and that person and really get to a new start that actually makes you feel you're in control of your life again. You're the authority figure of your life again. And then the way you deal with the other person is never out of a reaction, but you're the one who sets the tone and who says what kind of distance is there going to be between us. Because you can have relationship with coworkers where you call each other up in the evening, or you write like messages and you're pretty much friends. Or you can have relationships where you just respect each other. You make sure that your boundaries are not being crossed, but you're emotionally rather distant to that person. And that thing doesn't only concern like people that we don't have such a close relationship with, as in coworkers. This can be your friends, your family members, and just people in your life that have an impact on you. So it really comes down to this. This is the one thing I learned for sure, that I was giving away the authority of my life in certain areas to other people. So this rather happens often with your parents. On some kind of aspect, you have been giving that person or that parent in that example the power to be the authority figure on of a certain topic. So let's say you're somebody who wants to start their own business, and then like your parent always asks you, how's it going? Did you make enough money? Or like, do you really want to do this? Do you really dare to quit your job? Or you have somebody in your life who always asks you about your relationships. Whatever it is, something that nags you. You know, sometimes we have people in our life who tell us, oh, are you like not being clean enough? As in a way, are you being orderly enough? You're way too messy. Like people like this. And every time this happens, it really has an effect on us. And I recognized that I was giving away the power of how I feel about myself in that certain topic to the other person, because it was easier for me, or because I was just used to that. Since I'm more of an observer person, if I'm not being careful, if I don't teach my mind the habits of taking control of how I feel about certain areas of my life, I give them off to others. And I've done this, for example, once I started my business, and in the beginning, you know, you have uncertainties. You don't know like how fast is it gonna grow? How is like the business plan gonna look like? So you really don't need people in your life who actually question again if you're making the right choice. Like now they know everything's great, but it didn't happen in because they just saw how successful I am and then they backed out. Actually, it was the other way around. Actually, it was me understanding that I don't have to have their authority in my life. I'm the authority of that. And to be like, first off, I don't discuss these topics with them anymore. I don't get in positions where I allow them to be the one who give me feedback. I talked about in another video, when you have a friend, for example, who doesn't believe in what you're doing and they show it to you, consciously or subconsciously, somehow you feel like a failure around them and you don't know what is causing this, how this happened. Well, really think about, what is it? Well, with me, it was that this person, this friend, and I really consider her a friend. This wasn't like this like really awkward phase, but I was going a path that just wasn't hers. And I realized I don't have to be vulnerable around this topic with that person. This vulnerability has to be earned, and this vulnerability has to be really carefully chosen who to give to. Most of the time when I have been hurting in my life due to how other people react towards me, it's because I got vulnerable around people who had no business in being the shoulder to cry on or to lean on, because they have different opinions than you on this topic, and that that once you open up to them, they will actually counterproductively react towards you. And you see how this is a self-sabotaging pattern we do all the time, because at some point how the person is going to react, how that person feels, and you feel like, well, if I convince the other person that I'm doing the right thing, then I don't have to prove to myself that I'm doing the right thing. And since we don't believe this yet about ourselves, what do? We open up to people that mirror back to us the same thing we believe about ourselves, because our mind wants to be right. This is always the case. This is how our mind always acts. That's why it's so important to get into habits, to get into situations that prove to you that you're on the next level. So you believe that you're really making progress. You believe that you're really on the next step, on the verge of improving your life, that you really change things, that you do certain actions that prove it to you. Our mind wants to be right. So let's do the things that will prove to our mind that we are right. And so we have to do certain things that, make us become the person we want to be. So at this particular time, when you are in doubt in a certain situation, even if it doesn't feel like it, if you have reactions like this, recognize then it's because you haven't taken control of that part of you. So let's get back to that example. So that friend that actually doesn't believe in the way I live my life, and if I don't believe in it 100%, or if I have doubts, I will open myself up to her, because, I feel like we're one, we're connected. She has the same understanding or the same doubts I have. Oh, that's a connection, so I open up. This is not the person you want to be vulnerable around in this topic, because she has limiting beliefs in that area, and so do you. So who do you want to open up with when you want connection, when you want somebody to push you, when you want somebody to understand you? Somebody who's already made that shift, somebody who believes what you want to believe about yourself. And you can tell yourself over and over again, yes, I do believe I'm going to make it. Yes, I believe I'm going to be successful. But if you keep doing these things, then it has to be obvious to you that you subconsciously either don't believe it at all, or that you at least doubt it. And I think that is the biggest revelation I had in this whole process, is that I should just look at my actions. I should look at how I react to other person's opinions. If I allow this to keep on going, or if I just stop this kind of dynamic, that really proves to me where my subconscious is at. And that is the best thing ever, because I don't judge myself at this point. I don't say, oh, I have to convince myself that, I'm successful, or that I'm not messy, or that I'm a good housewife. Whatever it is, I personally have that thing. Because my dad, for example, always is all about, oh, you should cook more, you should, prepare meals, you should do all those typical housework things that I just don't like doing. I'm actually a rather orderly person. I like to tidy up a lot, but I never like to cook. And that was always something that my dad thought was so important. And he also thought it was so important for women to be like this. So I remember how this topic came up over and over again. And I want to tell myself, well, Wenzes, you're a good woman, and you're a good person. You don't have to get attached by this. This doesn't have to bother you. But it still did, and I still opened up and said something that would actually allow him again to have an opinion on this topic. And this dynamic is referable at any situation, at any dynamic that actually causes you to be hurt by another person. So that friend actually mirrors back to you that you do have doubts of being successful. my dad telling me that and me having a reaction towards it actually mirrors back to me that I do have doubts about being, a good like partner, a good woman, a good like housewife, whatever, like how you want to call it. But I can tell myself what I want. This is what my subconscious is telling me, because what would a person do who doesn't believe in that? She would either say, yeah, of course I don't cook. Like, who am I? I'm not going to cook, please. Or she's not going to have this kind of topic as a point in our conversations. I have so many people in my life who just believe certain things about what's right and what's wrong that are different from me. And what do? I just don't talk to them about it. Like, that doesn't make it like a bad relationship. So understanding this truth helped me out a lot, because then I could actually act towards it. I could understand, okay, my mind wants to be right at any given time. So how do I prove to my mind? How do I make my mind believe and live in this new reality paradigm where I do feel like I'm not messy, or where I do feel like I am successful, and where I do feel like I'm productive, or whatever it is that the other person makes us feel we're not. And so what I do then is I actually distance myself from that person in this particular topic. So I think of myself, how would it be if this person was a completely new person in your life? So you just met him. How would you talk to that person around this topic? Or what kind of things would you neglect telling them? So I first off stopped opening up to them in every kind of way where I had doubts. So if I had doubts, those were not the people I would share those doubts with. It kind of felt like it was more of a business relationship. I kind of like distance myself and really think of, okay, how would I act towards a person I would just meet, as I said, or somebody that you're at work with that you don't have that close of a relationship with. And you understand that just because you do that, you're not really doing something weird, because it feels uncomfortable if you think about, oh, okay, so I'm supposed to talk to somebody in my family more business-like. Yeah, it doesn't mean that just because you distance yourself emotionally that you're not actually reaching a level of how it should be. On top of it, that there is no like right or wrong here, but most of the time I recognize that I was way too close with the people in that area. I'm somebody who tends to be very like emotionally intimate with people very quickly. That's the way I roll, and I think most of you who actually connect to those videos are very similar to that. And so actually like distancing ourselves in this area will be a great way to create an even better relationship, to have more of an authentic connection, because there's not this thing that you always have to worry about being hurt in. So what did I do when it came to my friend and me believing that I'm successful or not? If I was even talking about my business, only talking about my successes. I was not talking about my doubts. You can even have little white lies with people in your family. So let's say your mom is always thinking about, oh, you should go out and you should meet somebody. And right now you're not in a position mentally, physically, or you just don't feel like it to look for a partner. But they always keep nagging you like, why haven't you met somebody? What are you doing? Like, just have a little white lie that you tell. Yeah, I went out with friends. We had a double date. It was nice. Like, but I'm dating. I haven't found like the right person. Like, that kind of behavior is, I think, completely right. Like, if you just don't allow any kind of like open discussions around certain topics, you take back your authority around this topic. You have to understand, you're not only the leading character of your movie in your life, like that has to be you all the time, but we give off so much of like certain authority decisions to other people. So if your dad thinks you're not successful, guess what? You also think you're not successful. Or if your mom thinks you're messy, you really do feel you're messy. So for example, also this great example with being a housewife. So I just don't talk about this topic. I bring the topic on things that I know that are not dangerous. So we talk more about books, or we talk more about where we're gonna go the next time on vacation together. Whatever it is, these topics I just don't embark in. And this is something that I used to do because I either wanted to prove to myself, yes, you are a good housewife, you're not messy, you're a good like successful person by being around somebody who cares about these things. And if I would convince that person, then great, like then everything is done. I don't need to be convincing that person. See, what we don't recognize is that we keep hurting ourselves because it's more important to us to be right than to be happy. That's just how our mind works. We really have to change that. So if you feel like, yeah, I'm not successful and I should be successful, what are you going to do? Subconsciously, you're going to open up to people. You're going to share with people in whatever kind of capacity about like your struggles, and you kind of like will be punished for that, and you subconsciously want to be punished. And this is something that happens over and over again if we're not careful and we don't feel that there's another choice. We're really blind to that. And once we understand that, oh, okay, I am blind, I don't know how to get out of it. And then the best way to actually do get out of it is first off to create some physical distance to that person. So if you talk to that person every other day, then make it a point that you don't talk to them for a week. Make sure that you actually minimize the interaction you have with that person in the first place, because the more distance you have, as in you don't have any contact with them, you don't feel their energy, you can project onto them, the easier it is to change your dynamic. That's why so many people say, oh, okay, if you really break off with somebody, try to find a way not to stalk them, not to see what they're doing. You need to have that distance in order to create a new dynamic. This also works if you have like a relationship right now where you do feel, I want to have that person in my life, but our current dynamic is just not working. If you want it to work, it really has to be that you actually talk to them as if they're a completely new person. Yes, you'll have like those great dynamics that you have already at some point, but you will have to change some things. Like I remember now the dynamics I had with one of my best friends when I was like 20, and it was very dysfunctional, and it was a lot of codependency and a lot of drama there. And now we're actually way more distant. And what I mean with distant is actually that we don't project everything onto the other. I knew exactly what she wanted. I knew exactly what made her feel bad. And like that kind of dynamic we don't have right now. So how's that supposed to work? Don't you feel like a bad person? Like how am I supposed to distance myself from like one of my parents or like somebody that is really close to me in my life? I can't just remove them like this. I mean, this is not theory, right? But the truth is actually that our relationship now is much more honest. It's much more trustful, because there is not this thing where you have to worry about if we're that close to each other, then it's always going to be connected with pain. Once we remove this thing of, you need the drama, you need the pain, you actually want peace, and peace is your highest priority, and that's the way you approach relationship. You start like really choosing dynamics that make sure that first off you have peace, and then you allow that person maybe more and more into your life by setting like those boundaries around those topics you just don't want to share with them. So I recognize if I want to be a person who has complete authority of this like topic, and that person doesn't help me to become more confident in that topic, then I will block everything off. And I'm not talking about you saying, I'm not going to talk to you about this topic. This is just for me. Like, leave me alone with that. That kind of attitude will not help you either, because this tells your mind and the person again that you're actually not feeling good about this topic, that this still triggers you and you don't want to be triggered. You want to be calm about this topic, and you don't want this topic to be a point of discussion. Because as I said, let's say we're talking about this housewife thing, right? How my dad reacted towards me in that area. That topic, I don't have that with anybody else. Like my friends know I'm not like a cooking person and they love to cook. So it's more of like a funny thing, or with my mom, or it's not even a topic at all. I have friends that I like see all the time. Never in our life have we talked about my qualities in the cooking department. Like it was just never a topic of discussion. So there is a reason why this comes up, and it's not just about what the other person wants to say. So whatever it is, if that person like really asks you something like directly and has no shame or whatever in order to like get it out of you, I think little white lies are completely fine to say. Yes, of course, I cook twice a week. I make pasta and I make rice. And then this topic is gone. That thing you just don't discuss anymore, because this has been something that has been triggering both of you. He has been triggered by, having somebody in his life who is like his daughter and she should be good at this and she's not. So you got to like really make this point more and more. And you, every time this happened, had to like relive it, tell yourself again, no, it's okay that I'm not a good cook. It's okay. And then like what happens, it continues. And you can say, well, but I don't want to lie about it. I want to be fine with not like being a good cook, and that's it. Yeah, I want you to do that too. But in order to get that, maybe change something about your dynamic. That's what I did, because I remember over and over again that I wanted to change the dynamic by actually staying in it. And you can't change the dynamic by staying in it. You gotta cut it off. You gotta stop like talking about this altogether, or like when they approach it, you block it off with like a little white lie. You leave it at that, and then you talk about something else. You do that 3 times, trust me, this topic will not come up again. And the person does this subconsciously as well. So most of the time with like hurtful situations like this happen is because you're triggering the other person and the other person is triggering you. So you don't start talking about this topic to begin with. You don't get in situations where this comes up. So let's say you're financially struggling right now because you're on the verge of changing something in your life. And then you have this one friend that kind of makes you feel like you made the bad choice. Like, it's really not a good idea to let that person invite you to lunch, to show that person that you're actually struggling and that you allow them to take care of you, because you're actually giving away your authority over this, how you feel about your own financial well-being, to that other person. And that person just gains their power in the situation by inviting you, by being somebody who actually is saving you, and then they have more power to tell you what to do. And this does not make your friend a bad person at all. It's just that you show up as the person who needs that help, who lets that person invite you. Like, I'm not saying don't let your friends invite you, but if you do that, like the next time, invite her. And if this is like too much money for you, then just don't go out so much. Or like get in situations where you say, let's go home, let's like do this, like where this is not a topic of discussion. You don't need that kind of energy in your life. And either you block it off completely by saying like a white lie and just stopping the tracks. You definitely don't like hone in on it. You definitely not gonna try to explain to the other person why you're doing so great, or how like you are such a good housewife, or how you have like these great like dates and they're helping you to become closer to your next relationship. Like, whatever it is, it can be something so uniquely to you. But don't explain yourself. You don't need that other person to understand you. And it's completely okay for that person to actually like think that you're handling this fine, and you are. Like, it's not about like, if you said, for example, why don't you tell your dad that you're a bad cook and that you just don't care? Well, because you're not at that point yet. If you're really completely okay with this, you wouldn't have these interactions that still hurt you. So rather close that off until you find complete, like really reassurance in this topic by talking to people who actually find it charming that you don't cook, who actually think it's cute, who think like, ah, yeah, that's who you are. Well, there are other things you like to do, and like this thing, who cares about this? Up until this point where this is completely so like okay with you that it doesn't trigger you when another person says it. And then, yeah, this can be more of a topic of discussion, but most of the time when you're really confident in a point with yourself, you just don't talk about this point with people who don't believe in that. Now that I'm completely convinced that I did the right choice, like doing this full time, I just don't talk to people about this in a way of, yeah, I have doubts. Am I doing the right thing? Like, whatever. I just don't do it. I either talk to her because I'm so excited about how great it's going, and I share with her all my successes, and I explain to her how great it is, but because I feel it inside. If I don't feel it yet, like at that moment, you're still vulnerable. You're still like building that self-esteem of yourself in this area up, and it's not a good idea to talk to that person about it. So once you've like really understood this, and you create this distance to that person, as in, you were like the best friends, or you were really close and were just nagging each other, to say, that's a person I know, that's an acquaintance. No matter if it's your dad, no matter if it's like your sister, no matter if it's your friend or a coworker you don't like. That's an acquaintance. How would I talk to an acquaintance? What kind of things would I talk to them about and what not? Those relationships, you get to decide how they're gonna be. And it's better to be a little bit too distant and then start building it up to a point where it actually feels good, instead of like being way too close where you can't get out of it. I talked about in the last video, your current reality realm is like having a net with little stones on each side that pulls you down to the ground, right? If you're there, you can't get out of it. You have to rise above it and then like change the situation. Then have a new understanding of what's going on and create a new dynamic. Christy Marie Sheldon puts it so greatly. She says, you have to be above the problem. You don't have to understand it. You don't have to stand under the problem. That way you won't like really make it happen. You have to be above it. And then questions arise, well, how are you going to learn from it if you're not understanding it? Are you not just denying what's going on? No, because you really learn your lessons and you change your dynamic. If I rationally understand the dynamics have been wrong, I don't need to be emotionally attached to this. Like once I know, oh, okay, I do have some kind of childhood drama around this, that I don't want to take responsibility for feeling great about like my success, or that I'm a little different. Like let's say you're different, and in this situation you always feel other people make you feel like you're different. If you get to a point where you say, well, I'm perfect the way I am and I don't feel different about myself, or how would the version of me who feels completely fine with herself act in a situation like this? She would just not interact with people that are like that. So you'd say, let's say you're at work and there are people who make you feel like you're different. If you really feel that there's nothing different around you, that every person is unique and you have your own set of like lifestyle rules and the way you like life, then you're either gonna like talk less to the people at your work, you're gonna treat them as acquaintances, you're gonna be respectful towards them, but you don't let them in all those things where you feel like you're different than them, because you don't get the kind of feedback that you want. But what you do is you go on conferences where you have similar people. You actually talk to people online. You watch videos like this. You surround yourself with people who tell you and who show back to you that you're completely fine and that there's nothing different about you. I remember when I was younger feeling so different and feeling so out of alignment and feeling like everybody just doesn't understand me. I don't have that at all. I catch myself from time to time when I'm in situations that I realize, yeah, it's true. I am actually different than, let's say, the majority of people that I grew up with, but it doesn't feel like this. It doesn't feel like this because my lifestyle represents back to me that I'm exactly where I need to be. This is like I'm the center point of my life, and the people, circumstance, and lifestyle represent that. But if you stay in situations which show back to you over and over again that you are different than what they would expect, then it always comes down to the fact that even if you don't want to believe it, you do feel like you're different. You should be there. Well, if you feel like you're completely like normal, then you're gonna surround yourself with people who mirror back to you that you're normal. And then with the other people, you either have less contact, or when you have contact, it's on such a level where these topics don't really come up. And you take back this authority figure of like how you feel about the situation. So those are the things. Physical distance in the beginning, talk less to them, create a new dynamic, as in I'm gonna talk to them a little bit more as if they're acquaintances, and the certain topics that actually get triggered in our relationship, in this dynamic, I'm not gonna bring up at all. I don't need to convince them that I am good in this topic, and I definitely don't need to convince them about your point of view, and you don't need to win in this situation. Winning in the situation as in I'm gonna fight and I'm gonna say I'm gonna do whatever I want, that's not helping you. The more you actually say, well, I'm not gonna like really get into this at all. I'm not gonna care. I'm not gonna talk about this. I'm gonna be above that. That's the person who really doesn't care. If you do care inside, like I'm not saying pretend like you don't, I'm saying change something about it. You only talk to people who don't make you feel bad about certain topics. And what happens, because your environment shows you over and over again that it's okay that you're like this, your mindset changes about this. Your belief about yourself changes. If you keep having somebody in your life in a dynamic that tells you over and over again, you're not a good cook or you're not a good housewife, you're gonna believe this. But if you have for years straight everybody telling you, you're great with this, you're fine, and every time you don't reach out to the people that actually make you feel like this, because that's the whole thing. If I still believe that I'm not a bad cook, I'm gonna go out of my way to talk to somebody who makes me feel like this. And if I stop myself every single time, even if it's just my dad in my entire life who makes me feel like this, if I stop people from talking to me about this topic, then I will believe it because my environment mirrors back to me what I wanna believe. And once this happens, then you start to believe it. And then everything changes. So really change your actions before you can change your belief, because your belief that thing, like you can tell it to yourself, but if your subconscious believes it, it's not going to happen. But you can have like powerful actions that prove to you that you're that new version of yourself, and that new version of yourself will start to believe it based on how your reality actually looks like. If you want to dive deeper into this topic, watch the video on how to stop projecting. It will help you a lot in this topic as well. Like always, guys, I wish you a wonderful day, a great week, and I talk to you next time. Bye.